Hello, and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and I'm here to talk about women's professional road cycling with my friend, Georgie Howe. Today, I'm going to preview the women's Giro d'Italia that starts on July 6th with an individual time trial and runs through the week. We've got a lot of exciting stages to look forward to, some really exciting names lining up this year. Georgie, thanks for joining me.
A joy to be here on a Friday night. Very excited for the Grand Tour in Italy and keen to see what will happen. It's going to be an interesting one given it's so close to the Tour de France. It's crazy to think that this is the last year that we'll see mass overlap with the men's tour as well.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on the Wheel Talk podcast last week, but this is the last time, at least for now, that the women's Giro will overlap the men's Tour de France in July. Starting next year, the Giro is aligning with the men's Giro d'Italia, so the last two stages will line up in June and it'll run way earlier in the year. The calendar change will mean that the start list will be very different, with a larger gap between the Giro and the Tour and a smaller gap between the Vuelta and the Giro. So there's going to be a lot of knock-on effects from the movement of the Giro, but I think we talked about how great it's going to be for the race itself, that it's going to have its own its spot on the calendar that's separate from the men's tour, given that the men's tour is so all-encompassing and there's no way to kind of climb out from the shadow of the men's race.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an issue we see a lot across sports that have both a men's and women's component. Here in Australia, we see that it's tricky with both having men's and women's football. Like, where do you place the season for the women's league to make sure there's no clash and you get maximum uptake of fan engagement, and possibly even a hangover effect from the men's league as well. But it's good to see that that all the race organizers have decided to prioritize the women's Giro, and I'm just really excited to see, not that this isn't a mature start list, but next year I'm really keen to see what will happen to the start list. I think we'll see some really big hitters at all three Grand Tours, which will be really awesome.
Yeah, I think the most notable thing is that Demi Vollering isn't lining up, right, as the best climber in the peloton and the winner of the Vuelta. And I think it'll be interesting next year to see who goes for the triple, because,
like, clearly you'd say Demi, right?
Yeah, I mean, she must. But we'll dive into that a little bit more, because I think it's worth talking about that in terms of FDJ's lineup for the race. So let's get into it. So the basics for the Giro, and you can find a written preview over on escapecollective.com. I've written a big, huge preview, a big, beautiful preview, if you will, over on Escape Collective.
I mean, let's not go into the big, beautiful, because I mean, there's another big, beautiful thing that's going on in the States, and I'm really mad.
I'm reclaiming it. I'm trying to reclaim it. The race starts Sunday, July 6th and runs to Sunday, July 13th. There's a TT, 3 mountaintop finishes. One is the most significant of the 3. 2 are kind of like hilltop finishes, and we'll talk about them. But there's one really big mountaintop finish on stage 7. We've got two sprint stages, kind of, and one really epic in-between type of stage. Biggest names on the start list: Lisa Langborghini, Anna van der Breggen, Lotte Kopecky, Marlon Reusser, Marianne Vos. And you can watch the stages every day at 12:50 p.m. CET on Rai Sport, Discovery Plus, Eurosport, TNT Max, or Flowbikes, depending on your location. I'm really, really excited to tell you that we will be bringing you daily episodes of the Wheel Talk podcast after each stage. Georgie's coming on a few with me. We've got Lauren Rowney. We're going to have some guest appearances from Cosmo Catalano and Ezra Trump, who's the general manager of the EF Education Oatly team. So we're going to have a stellar lineup of hosts, but we also have just an absolutely packed list of audio diaries from riders. I get these audio diaries every year, and it started back in, I think, 2017 when Lauren and I first started podcasting about the racing. I reached out to friends and asked them if they would send audio diaries, and it's really evolved into this thing that is a really cool way to get a look inside the peloton. So I'm super excited. This year we're going to have Amanda Spratt, Alice Towers, Sarah Gigante, Brody Chapman, Leah Coroner, Becca Story, Mira Canavan, Josie Talbot, and more to come. So it's going to be great. Yeah, there's a lot. And they've all been designated their specific days based on what the stage is. Sarah Gigante was thrilled when she discovered I gave her all the mountaintop stages.
Been hunting down those Strava segments earnestly.
She might be one of my favorite audio diarists. I think she sent me an 8-minute one last year.
She's absolutely fantastic. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I mean, she's just great. She also did the Giro preview with us last year, Georgie, and those are some big shoes to fill because she knows her stuff.
I'm a little bit nervous. I hope, like, I mean, I've just conditioned the fan base to put up with my voice the past 6 months, so I'm really hoping that they give me the benefit of the doubt with this one.
All right, well, let's dive into it. I'm excited to pick your brain on the first stage because it is an individual time trial, and it's not the individual time trial of 2020. Was it 2022? That was 4 kilometers long.
That was 2023, where it was like everyone needed a snorkel.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I mean, maybe this year as well, it looks like. The 14.2 kilometer time trial starting and ending in Bergamo will open this year's time trial, and there will be rain probably. It's a basically flat time trial, although there is one like tiny kicker in it. But it's definitely one for the time trial specialists. The Lights of Marlon Reusser will be really looking forward to this opening stage, whereas Elise Longo-Borghini, who won the time trial last year and took the first pink jersey, maybe not looking forward to this one as much, even though she is a very good time trialist. Georgie, tell us about the time trial.
So, sorry, we've got 2 dogs in the house who are very excited to see each other. So if you hear some rustling around, it's because they're creating a ruckus and we need a rumpus room for them to go into.
Amazing.
But one is very small and one is quite big, so they make quite the duo. But yeah, the time trial should be really interesting. It's a really interesting point to have it, given the fact it's the first stage, so that teams can actually choose when their riders go off. And we talked about the weather. I think it's going to be summer storms, so like those intermittent storms that like come in and out. Abby, we talked about this offline, that like it could be raining, could also not be raining, but they're also really wholly like unpredictable when they do come. Like we both know the European summer storms, and I think the whole world knows that Italy has really struggled recently with like a heat wave. Like you look at like the weather map, we saw it in the Discord, that the whole country is just magenta. It's so hot at the moment. So when those roads, particularly in northern Italy, get really dry and hot, a lot of oil on the road, and then they get wet, they get slippery. I had a look at the course on Street View. It seems pretty straightforward heading out. They almost start on like a bike path, it seems, and then they take their left turn onto the main road. They cross a train line almost immediately, and then they head out to the U-turn, and there are a few roundabouts to negotiate, but I don't think there'll be terribly technical. They go around a roundabout at the U-turn, and then they come back and take that right turn to start to go into those narrower roads behind the town of Bergamo. I think it's going to be quite technical, that part. So basically kilometer 8.5 to 4 to actually probably 12, particularly on that kicker that you mentioned and on the descent from that kicker. I actually sent you like a screenshot of that Street View, Abby, and it's like that, like one lane narrow roads, but also like the Italian roads where you've got like the buildings finished straight on the sidewalk, like basically on the road. So it's very claustrophobic in there as well. And if that's wet and slippery, you can very little room for error there. And in terms of pacing strategies, it's a really interesting one. I don't think wind will be a factor. Majority of your time is going to be gained in the first 8K. So that's going to be about, depending how fast they're going, probably about 40 Ks an hour. So I'm not very good at math, but our listeners can work that one out. Basically, they can, the majority of their time will probably be spent in that first 8K. However, I think they can lose a fair amount of time if they don't handle those that last 6Ks well. I don't think that kicker is going to slow them down that much. I think what will slow them down is the technicality of the roads there. But looking at the start list, I think Elisa Longo-Borghini is really well placed to do quite well in this kind of parkour, and as well as like other riders such as, Silke Smulders has kind of proven herself. Lucinda Brand is also a really good one. I'll be keen to see how Anna Henderson goes on this kind of TT as well. It's going to be interesting without the likes of it's weird without the likes of Grace Brown and Ellen Van Dijk. So the really heavy hitters in the time trial discipline. But I also think you can't discount Lotte Kopecky as well in a time trial like this. 14 Ks, so probably take them around about 14 Ks.
Yeah, I said it would be sub 20 minutes because last year's 15.6 kilometer time trial they did in 20 minutes. So I think We're looking at like an 18-minute effort, perhaps.
Yeah, and I actually see someone like Brody Chapman doing quite well in this as well. Like I know she's been targeting the TT, and like if she can win if UAE can get either Eliza or Brody to up, I think they could both potentially get on the podium. That will be a huge win for them and set them up really well for the rest. I don't think time gaps will be very big either, but I think weather is going to play a huge part.
All right, stage 2, Monday, July 7th from Clusone. I'm not going to be able to pronounce any of these names, just so everybody's.
Our listeners will be endeared by your mispronunciation.
Or they'll be furious. Clusone to Aprica, 92 kilometers. And this is the first hilltop finish. It's not a mountain per se. It's just a really long climb that...
Can I interrupt you there and just say... Well, Babs also would like to interrupt you and say that this is actually a mountain. Like, as in, like, I would classify this as a mountain. As if this was on the profile and they called it a hilltop, I'd slap someone.
Yeah, it's like, what, 50 kilometers of climbing, basically?
Including the Long Valley Road, it's nearly 44 kilometers at 2%.
And the actual climb at the end is only 12 kilometers long. And there's one really steep section in that 12 kilometers that then kind of flattens out.
It's like 1 kilometer at 13%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a climb in the mid stage as well, like a little poppy climb that I think will be basically insignificant. But what's interesting about this stage is I think it's going to be, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have either riders attacking on that short, steep part at the beginning of the climb and trying to stay away. Like if you have a climber who's not confident coming to the line with a group at that point but they think they can hold them off, then we might see some attacks there. I wouldn't put it past Reusser attacking there, for example, and trying to hold them off for the rest of the climb, but it will kind of depend on how confident people are feeling about being in a group coming to the top of that climb. I think what the most likely outcome is, if it's not like a solo finisher, is a reduced group of GC favorites. And I don't think we're going to see a ton of time lost on this stage for most of our favorites, but there might be kind of a narrowing of the group of GC favorites before we get to the rest of the week. Like we might just kind of trim the edges, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm just looking at so after that really steep bit, you get like about nearly 9 kilometers at only about 3.6%. So I think this is like a Marlon Reusser. This is like what she loves, right? So she could attack there, spend about 20 minutes in the red and then just settle in for a TT. But I think we're going to see the GC favorites come to the fore. If that doesn't happen, they'll all kind of be watching each other and getting ready for the rest, because it is still stage 2 and there's a lot that could still happen. I think we're just going to see a separation between the top 5 fighting for GC, sorry, top 5 or 10 fighting for GC and the rest of the peloton.
I mean, I think really what the first 2 stages look like are very Reusser friendly. And obviously, because we're doing daily podcasts, we're not going to go into too much detail about what will happen because we're going to be talking about every stage as it happens. But looking at just the first 2 stages, no wonder Reusser wanted to target the Giro this year. These 2 stages look tailor-made for her, especially how she's riding right now.
100%. And she's got a really good team around her too. So I like that. It's a very experienced team. So I don't doubt that they, as a team, Reusser might be targeting it, but I think as a team, they're really intent on doing a good job here.
Stage 3 is one of 2 potential sprint finishes. Visea de Oglio to Trento, 122 kilometers. This one starts with a category 1 climb. It is just the worst nightmare. If you didn't get a good night's sleep, it's a rough start to the stage.
This is like the kind of stage that like people like myself would be bicarbing and caffeinating and paracetamoling.
Yeah.
Everything.
So after that, good news is after that initial category 1 climb to start the day, they descend for a really long time. It's basically just a gradual descent for the next 60 kilometers.
It starts to roll at so it's about 40 kilometers of negative 3.2%, and then they start to roll down into the flat.
And then the final 30K is basically just flat as flat can be. So it's looks more like a sprint stage than a lot of the other stages, and with only 2 quote flat stages in the race, teams that have a sprinter on the start line will want this to be a sprint stage because there are just so few opportunities for the sprinters. So I think that, yeah, stage 3, we're looking at a sprint.
Yeah, and it's going to be a really interesting one, I think, because how much firepower, it's stage 3, you've got, what, 5 more stages to go. How much firepower do you really want to expend controlling the bunch on that first climb? Because that will hurt a lot. And then how much can you trust to bring it back? Because we know that like gaps are harder to bring back on the descent and in a tailwind. So how much, if a break does go, how much time do you give it? How much energy do you expend controlling it on day 3? And if you're a GC rider, at what point do you let it go and just let the break win and fight and live to fight another day?
Yeah, exactly. Stage 4 is another hilltop finish. This one is steeper than the stage before, and there are 3 categorized climbs before they get to the Cat 1 that finishes the stage. The first categorized climb comes at the midway point, but the whole stage is pretty rolling. So this will be another day where the GC is probably not decided, but is definitely take some hits. The climbs leading up to it are like, 2.3 kilometers long, 5.8%. There's an 11% thrown in there for good measure. The final climb, according to the Strava segment, is 9.6 kilometers long, averages 7.3%, and has some points of 11%. So I think while we won't see the GC decided on this stage because it's only stage 4 and there are some significant stages to come, this is definitely going to be an action-packed stage. And I think given the climbs that come before it, much like the 7th stage, which is the queen stage of the race, the climbs that come before it and how long the climb is, the riders that are going to have an advantage on this stage are teams that brought good climbers with them to support their GC rider. This is the stage where I'm really looking forward to the Anna van der Breggen Kopecky duo and how they take on this stage.
Do you think SD Works is riding for Kopecky? Have we solidified that?
I think that they are riding for Kopecky, but if van der Breggen is all of a sudden riding super well, then I think that they're going to ride for her. Look, what I think is going to end up happening is that Kopecky, we don't know what her form is like. She's obviously had an off season so far. She's had her knee injuries. She's not been on the same level she was last year when she was challenging Lisa Longo Borghini for the title at the Giro. I don't think it's fair to be like, I don't think she's going to contend because she's Lotte Kopecky. She's the world champion. We haven't seen her race in quite some time. And I think that we will see how she goes on the first stage. She just won the Belgian national time trial title, but she was way down in the road race, and road races are weird, whatever. But Kopecky of last year just soloed away if she wanted to win a race, right? So it's in question how her form is, and I think that the team is going to be really honest about that going into the race. And if it looks like Van der Breggen can win the race, they're not going to be backing Kopecky because they told her they would. If it looks like Van der Breggen can take a 5th Giro victory, because she's won 4 in the past. Like, this is her comeback year, yeah, but she's won 4 Giros before she knows what she's doing. So I think it's, while they maybe are saying they're going to back Kopecky, and perhaps they are going in with dual leadership, knowing that they're going to back Kopecky at the Tour. But I think that is another race where with the two of them, it's really just going to depend on who has the better legs on like the first significant climbing stage, which is kind of this stage.
Well, no, I think I actually think like stage 2 is going to probably show the cracks a bit.
Yeah.
Like I think we'll see, if one doesn't ride away from the other, I think we'll see dynamics at play in that second stage for sure. What's going to be interesting is how the peloton dynamic in that 4th stage, how they respond to those kickers leading into the final climb. Like I've been in races before where the major climb was at the end, and like because of the severity of the final climb, so to take the last stage of the Tour de France in 2023, for example, like you had Col d'Aspin and then you had the Tourmalet, but then there was like a 3K kicker at like 10Ks into the race. It looked like nothing on the profile, but I set my 5-minute best ever power on that climb because people were so hell-bent on getting up the road and away from the climbers. So I don't think we can discount those rollers heading into the final climb. Like there's a significant one at 61Ks into the stage. That's 2.65Ks at 6.7%. That could be a legitimate launch pad. And if the GC favorites look at each other, if SD Works do SD Works things, we could see something very interesting happen on that final climb.
Yeah, and this is where riders like Elise Longoborghini, who has Brody Chapman with her, depending on how Brody's time trial goes and how she goes on stage 2, if Brody is up there in the GC also, like UAE has a lot of cards to play as well. So I think that this is going to be a really interesting stage, how it plays out, and that it's at the midway point of the race, and there's basically a sprint stage to come afterwards. There's so much that could happen in this stage, whereas if you look at a stage down the line that we're going to talk about in a second, like stage 6, there's a lot of things that could happen in that stage as well, but it's closer to the end. This one, people still have really fresh legs. There's not been a ton of climbing so far, except for stage 2. So I think it's just such a good opportunity for a lot of riders this stage. And I think that this one doesn't favor Reusser as well as stage 2, and she will be looking at stage 7 as like a big one. But I like that they put this stage at the midway point in the race, because it means that there's going to be more GC battle throughout the week versus last year when we just kind of had the one queen stage on the 7th stage, and it wasn't wrapped up by any means, but there were less points during the race where you'd be like, hey, this is going to be a GC battle. And yeah, with this one, it's like there could also be points in the lead up to the climb where like riders could get away, and you could have like a two battles in the same day, a race for the stage, a race for the GC going on behind already on stage 4.
Do you think that this is a point in the race where we'll see the unlikely victor? Because, I mean, we have seen in the Giro previously where riders have seen a breakout ride at the Giro d'Italia from like a lesser known team, or a rider that we wouldn't think would get a win. Do you think that it's too early in the race maybe to see that happen on a stage like this?
I think so. I think that stage is coming for stage 6. So let's dive into stage 5 really quick, because there's not a ton to talk about for stage 5. And then, yes, I definitely want to talk about that with stage 6. Stage 5, Murano to Montcelis is the other sprint stage. There are 2 circuits at the end of the race that have one little climb in it, but I wrote about the climb in the preview because it is a climb, and to call the stage flat would be a disservice, but it's definitely going to be a sprint stage. I think this one is because there's only 2 opportunities for the sprinters. They are going to take advantage of those 2 opportunities. So I think that this one, there's not really much wind predicted for the stage, unfortunately. So the fact that it's mostly very flat is going to be, means that it's going to be a pretty straightforward sprint stage. Maybe I think we'll see like a breakaway go off with some of the smaller Italian teams, but what we're looking at is a Voss versus Wiebes versus Chiara Consoni battle, I think, where obviously Wiebes is going to win.
See if Jeff Bezos pops her out from Venice to come say hi to the race as it goes past. Maybe Leonardo DiCaprio if he decides to show his face.
Put his hat all the way down, because why would you want to be seen at that wedding? I don't know, when you're a climate activist. Stage 6, Bellaria Inga Marina to Terra Roverche. This one is 145 kilometers long, and look, I am a sucker for these in-between stages where there's just a ton that could happen on the stage. It could be really interesting. It could be a breakaway stage. I think we always get at least one solid breakaway stage at the Giro. Last year, we had the stage that Liana Lippert won, I think it was. And we had a couple other really good ones as well. But this stage is, because there are 3 potential GC days, there's 2 sprint stages, 1 time trial, it really only leaves 1 option or 2 options for breakaway stages, and this is one of the 2. They have 3 categorized climbs. The hardest one is a category 2, 32.9 kilometers into the race. And this one, they actually cross over the entire microstate of San Marino, which they speak primarily Italian, use the euro, but are not technically part of the EU. So I made a joke in the preview about how I hope the border security has the day off. Obviously, they're not going to stop them at the border, but yeah, I made myself giggle. Anyway, so this stage, they have the categorized climbs. There's also, in true Giro fashion, 3 uncategorized climbs, and one of them is pretty close to the finish, about 7 kilometers from the finish, I think it is. It starts, 10 kilometers from the finish and tops out with about 7K to go. And there is one really steep little pitch on that climb. So I think that this is a stage where a break could easily go on that first category 2 climb. And then we could see fireworks from the breakaway going on that final uncategorized climb into the finish.
I think if you were going to watch any stage for pure entertainment value, I think it would be this one.
Yeah, if you want to take out the general classification battle from the conversation and just focus on who's going to win the stage, I think this is the stage you want to watch.
100%. Like there's so many launch pads. We're going to see so many dynamics at play, particularly with like the climbs, but also the descents. Like we know these Italian roads they twist and turn, and like usually they get down to one lane. And so we're going to see like the creme, people just like willing to have a crack, really on this stage and seeing, and like, yeah, who wants the stage win the most? I don't think we're going to see any. I mean, the GC will control the GC, that's for sure. But like, I think we're going to see like true appetite for the stage win on stage 6.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Queen stage coming up next Saturday, July 12th, from Mignano to Monterone. I should have asked Eliza to like send me voice clips of all of the.
No, I think it's great because we can get we're all learning, Abby.
I can actually still do that. I'm gonna ask Eliza Longoborghini, winner of the 2024 Giro, and she can send me a voice clip of every start and finish town to put in the daily pods.
That's a bit. You're just flexing that you're friends with Eliza Longoborghini, winner of the 2024 Giro.
Stage 7, the Queen stage, and also the longest stage of the race. Normally, the Giro has been known for throwing in one super long stage, but it's normally a stage with a profile kind of like stage 6, where there are some climbs, but it's not a crazy GC day. This time, the longest stage is also the Queen stage, and they have 3 categorized climbs before the category 1 that ends the stage, or depending on which site you're looking at, this climb has also been called an HC climb. But on the Giro preview, on the Giro website, they've classed it as a Cat 1. And then there's a bunch of uncategorized climbs as well throughout the stage. So it basically starts with a climb, and then there are a succession of 4 climbs before they get to one climb that leads into the final climb. It's just a lot. And you can see the preview on the website, of course, but there's a lot of climbing on this stage, 3,611 meters over the whole stage. And it's another one where there's, I think because of how hard the final climb is, there will not be a ton of action on those climbs before the Monte climb.
No. I think we might see the opportunistic breakaway, but I don't think we'll see the true GC contenders getting up the road before that final climb, because it's 14Ks at 7% after a mass, and I think you go up about 955 meters after, and so therefore you've already done 2,500 meters of climbing in the legs. So I really think it's going to be self-preservation until that final climb, and that's where we'll see the fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be the stage where the GC is, really probably decided. I would be quite surprised if we went into the final stage with a 1 second gap between first and second like we did last year. I think we have more contenders this year for the Giro than we did last year. So I think that means that we're going to see more fireworks on this climb than we did on the Queen stage last year, where Neve Bradbury took the stage and it was Kopecky and Longoborghini sprinting for bonus seconds. I think this is going to be like fireworks start to finish on the climb, or at least a really, really hard pace set on the base of the climb. And then like the steepest sections of the climb are from the middle of the climb to the top of the climb. So it really pitches and rolls on that whole final half of the climb, which I think means that there's a lot of places where attacks can be made and ground where riders can chase as well. So it just is the ideal climb for a GC showdown.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a climb where you won't be able to find your rhythm at all. So those time trial types will struggle. to kind of get into the groove, but then you get the more explosive types. Like I actually see Anna van der Breggen going away on this climb.
Yeah, I think she's definitely one of the riders to watch for this one. And I think that there's a lot of pure climbers on the start list that are potentially not GC contenders that I would be looking at if they can get to the bottom of the climb. Like we know that Urska Zigart is riding super well, but those climbs and descents leading up to the climb, the big climb might maybe hinder her.
She's got support though. She's got a really good team.
It depends who their leader is, though, because they also have Sarah Gigante, who is an incredible climber, riding really well right now, and has won World Tour stage races in the past. She won the Tour Down Under, obviously. Ashley Moolman-Pasio, who's like a veteran of the sport and has finished on the podium of the Giro, and she will be wanting to have a good performance at this Giro because she's had kind of a quiet season so far.
Yeah, and they've got Mira Benito, who is also just a really solid, so like she's a leader in her own right. But if like say Ushka or Sarah need to be brought back after they get into some strife, though like that's someone who you can get to do it, as well as Alex Manley when she kind of reverts back from the sprinter type into the more support role in those high mountain stages.
The final stage is really, really fun. This is another one where if you want to just watch the stage for pure entertainment, highly recommend the final stage. Forli to Imola, 134 kilometers, but most of it takes place on a circuit. We love a circuit. They basically start in Forli, and there's one there's one category 3 climb on the way into the circuit, and then 3 laps of a 28.2 kilometer circuit that includes a category 3 and a category 4 climb, but it's really relentless. The whole circuit is relentless. There's bonus climbs thrown in there, and once they come off of the kilometer 3 climb, they descend to the finish basically. So this is one where if the GC is close, this could be an interesting stage because there will be bonus seconds on the line. So we might see like a lot of action from the GC, but this is probably going to be another potential stage for the breakaway, especially if stage 7 is really, really exhausting. I'm thinking like Giro 2020 when Evita Music won the final stage of the Giro, for example.
Yeah, it's a course that like followers of cycling will be familiar with because it's where the World Championships were. Where was it? When were the Imola World Championships?
2020.
Yeah, so that was a similar course to that. No doubt there will be fireworks on this course. I think it reminds me a lot of the Ardennes. So like that climb on the circuit is like just over a K at like nearly 12%. So it will be attritional, that's for sure. The bonus seconds could be at play, but I think with the severity of the stages we've had leading up to this, I don't think we'll see. I think GC would have been decided by this point. The gaps will be pretty big.
But keep in mind that Anna van der Breggen won Worlds on this course, on the Imola course in 2020.
So could she just want to flex and go for it?
I mean, I think she's maybe expected more out of herself in this comeback, and she said that she has, wanted to ease back into racing. She doesn't have any goals this year, which I don't believe for a second. So I don't think that this is a stage that we can like fully rule out from a GC rider taking it.
Yeah. Okay, that's a fair shout. And also you got to think like Elisa Longoborghini. If Anna van der Breggen goes, Elisa will want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And being an Italian.
Or if, for example, like if Elisa doesn't have the GC performance that she's hoping for, obviously she's trying to win her second Giro. She wants to retain the title, but if it doesn't go her way, then I could see her going just buck wild on this stage and taking the stage.
Looking at we're talking about the last stage here, but like looking at the whole Giro, it's going to be incredibly entertaining. I think with RCS taking control of the race, it's just gotten better since they've taken the reins, taken over the reins. And I am sad that we're not seeing like a full the same lineup that we'll see at the Tour de France Femme at the Giro, because this course is really good, and it really like lends itself to a high entertainment value. So I can't wait for next year when it does get its own month.
I don't know. I think I'm kind of excited for a race that doesn't include Vollering because I think that she's incredible and she's probably going to win the tour. But I think that her her climbing ability can suffocate the GC a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing like who comes out on top, and there's still time enough between now the Giro and the Tour that I want to see how if a rider like Reusser can win the Giro and then podium at the Tour with the shorter turnaround and what that's going to mean for next year as well, which I think leads us perfectly into the contenders.
Yeah, let's talk start list.
The top two contenders for the race in my eyes are last year's winner Elisa Longoborghini, who's going in with a team of UAE from UAE Team ADQ that is just tailor-made for her to win this race. She's got her favorite domestique in Brody Chapman, but she's also got Sylvia Persico, Erica Magnaldi. She's got Elena Amia-Lusic. I think in general, she is their main priority. They have Eleanor Gasparini in terms of like a fast finisher, but I think that they are coming in to win this Giro with Elisa, and she has really changed her program this year to race less and be at altitude more. With Little Trek, they wanted to utilize her talents, and she raced a lot more when she was racing for the American team. But this year, she spent a lot of time at altitude and not gone to as many races as she has before. So I want to see how that impacts her racing, her kick in particular. She had such a good sprint on her last year after she'd done all of those racing. Her number one competitor in my eyes is Reusser. I mean, after the dominant performance that she showed at Tour de Suisse, just how happy she is with Movistar. She's got a really strong team around her as well, and I think that the course of the Giro really suits Reusser. And those two in my eyes are the 1 and 2 like heavy hitters to take the Giro this year.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think that does? I mean, because we kind of talked about Vollering and the mental games that she fights with on the bike. What do you think it will do to have a former teammate like Marlon, who supported her as a teammate, winning a Grand Tour and then coming to the Tour de France?
I don't know if she would really think much of it at the moment. I think she's so focused on the Tour, but I think the bigger thing is that for Reusser going into the Tour, if she does win the Giro, then she's going to go into the Tour with so much more confidence, and that might be more terrifying for Vollering, just that she could gain the amount of confidence that Reusser could gain from winning.
100%. I think that's bang on. My other dark horse contender, actually no, before I go into that, I just want to talk about Little Trek's lineup. Who is the lead rider for Little Trek?
Yeah, this is a really good question because Gaia Riolini was taken off the start list over the week. So I just really hope that she's doing all right. She's not really had the season that she'd been hoping for and last year as well. So I think she would have been their leader without Longoborghini. But looking at their start list, they have Amanda Spratt, who is riding super well right now. They have Sharon Van Anrooy, who is also riding pretty well, but is she a GC contender yet? I'm not sure. I think we'd have to see. Isabel Holmgren, who's one of the best up and coming climbers in the peloton. Anna Henderson, who is a decent climber and I think will excel in the time trial. I think that they have a stage hunting team more than a GC team, but they are still going to try to go for the GC. And I think the best option for them is Spratty, honestly.
I think that's also a fan favorite choice.
Oh, that's a heart choice. That is like 90% a heart choice. Can you imagine if Spratty got on the podium of the Giro after everything that she's been through the last couple of years?
Oh, I think everyone in the cycling world and beyond would be beyond stoked for that.
Also, the audio diaries are going to be great.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. But I think that'll also give Little Trek, take the pressure off Little Trek a bit for controlling the GC, because we know that they tend to overwork it sometimes. to their detriment. So it's I think it's good to, if they have the definition of a stage hunting team going into the race, it takes the pressure off them substantially, and they should. Will be really interesting to see how they interact with the peloton in that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they don't take this on. I think that they are in a really, really good opportunity with this lineup and with all eyes on other riders to be able to take a back seat in controlling the race and just see where their riders end up if they just race their bikes, you know?
Yeah, and I think a few other teams are taking the stage hunting approach. I know Liverpool Jayco are looking at it as a stage hunting Giro. They're not probably going to go for the GC unless the opportunity presents. I'm looking at a team like Picnic Postanel as another stage hunter. EF Education is another one.
Yeah, human powered health. I mean, I think most of the mid-tier teams are stage hunting. I think in terms of the GC, like we've got UAE with Eliza, we've got kind of the trio of Gigante, Molman Passio, and Zigart for AG Insurance. We've got Van der Breggen and Kopecky for SC Works Pro Time, who we've already kind of talked about. And I think will be like, there's just so many question marks over SC Works Pro Time at the moment and their GC riders in particular. I think that the fact that they lost Vollering is like really hard to miss at this point in time as we're approaching the two kind of biggest Grand Tours of the year. And neither of their riders who would have fit into Vollering's seat in the team are living up to their what they are capable of. Visma Lisa Bike is one of the stage hunting teams. They've got Voss on the start list, and she's, for the first time in her career, she didn't win a stage of the Giro last year, so she will want to rectify that this year. And they have a few decent climbers on the start list as well, but it's a really, in the true Visma Lisa Bike fashion, it's a really young team that they're taking to the race. And yeah, I think like in terms of the GC, and I've got the star rankings in the preview. The other really interesting ones for me, FDJ Suez without Vollering, they've got the duo of Avita Music and Juliette Labousse, who will probably both be going to the tour in support roles for Vollering. So this is their opportunity to do something in the GC. Can they do that is the bigger question.
Yeah, I'm keen to watch how FDJ go in this race without Vollering. And I think it is Labousse's big chance. Well, let's just hope that her she doesn't put too much pressure on herself, and then that sabotages the way that she races.
I think if they can race together really well, then they could finish on the podium, but I don't know how. I think it would be, for me, it would be an upset if either of them won the race, and I would love to see it. Like, they're both such incredible riders, and I think Music in particular has been touted as kind of this future of GC riding for French cycling for years, pretty much since she won that Giro stage in 2020. But she's always been so young, and the team has done such an amazing job of not putting too much pressure on her. But I think at a point they do have to put pressure on her, and I think she's ready. I think she's ready for that pressure, and this is kind of her opportunity for it. And I think that they're going to have a similar approach to SC Works, where they're going to kind of see who kind of comes out on top without putting one of them ahead of the other for the GC. And yeah, see like where the chips fall really, and who is in a better position going into that 7th stage. And then by stage 7, we'll know who the leader is between the two of them. But like looking at the two of them right now, I couldn't say who FDJ should ride for. I think putting either of them in a leadership role ahead of the other would be a bad call, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think keep it open for now. We'll see how. Well, no, I honestly think stage 2 is going to be so definitive for how teams operate moving forward. I don't think many teams will go in with an out-and-out leader. I think they'll probably see how the race dynamics go, and because we'll know pretty early on in the race.
And then Phoenix Sekunik also has 2 interesting options with Yara Kasline and Paulina Roerkes. Roerkes obviously finished on the podium of the tour, so she's she's a rider who will really want to build on that performance. And my favorite thing about this team is that they have Annemiek van Vleuten as a mentor of sorts for the team. And she's obviously won the Giro 4 times before, and will have a particular interest in the team doing well since they're going up against her old rival in Van der Breggen. So I love that little subplot of women's cycling this year. And I don't think either of them can win the Giro, if I'm being honest. But I mean, Yara Kastelein up against Reusser at Burgos was a fantastic little duo, and she rode really, really well. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised if one of them took a stage or they were up there in the GC. They're just an added kind of bonus to the GC battle. Antonia Niedermeyer.
Just on Phoenix Deconic, like, we know that they are an opportunistic team. They've been the most entertaining team to watch over the past couple of years in the Grand Tours. But you mentioned Niedermeyer and Canyon Tram. That's a team we haven't really spoken about. I think, yeah, they've got Cecily seems to be finding her legs. I know she was devastated after flatting out of that lead group in Tour of Britain. And then, so she'll be keen to show off her form in this Giro. I would assume she's supporting Niedermeyer, but we'll have to see how the race plays out. And I would say that someone like Tiff is road captain for this kind of race. But Canyon Tram have had a fairly lackluster season so far. So I think now that we're in the big leagues with the Giro and the Tour, they really have to pull their finger out.
For Canyon Stram, I think looking at this lineup, like, they're going to be going for the 2 sprint stages with Consoni, and they have some really good opportunity. Like, they have a good opportunity to have a strong GC finish with Niedermeyer and some potential, like a potential stage win for Uttrup Ludwig. I want to see her back on top. She's such an exciting rider to watch, so I really hope that she can kind of get back to where she was a couple years ago. But I think looking at this lineup, they are putting everything into the Tour, and they're not necessarily looking for a Giro victory with this roster.
No, I think that's an accurate hypothesis. I don't think they, which is a shame, because Canyon is typically a very exciting team to watch. But it seems at the moment Cassia is really there on the card at this Grand Tour at the big leagues. But however, in saying that, Cecily is a fantastic rider, and she's a great get for them this season, and I would love to see her get up for at least a stage.
Yeah. With the sprints, we already mentioned that Rebus is going to be there for SD Works Pro Time, and I think that she's the rider to watch, and Voss hopefully can try to challenge. And then we've got Consoni, but those are kind of the 3 biggest names for sprinting. There's a couple other sprinters who I think will want to get up there. Megan Jastrab, who's normally on the lead-out train for Charlotte Kool, for example, and my old teammate, and is just incredible. Would love to see her kind of mixing it up in the sprints. Liv Alula-Jaco always comes with a strong sprinting option, and they've got Georgia Baker. And I think, yeah, in general, like, even though there are only 2 opportunities for sprints, there's still a lot of riders who are going to get amongst it for those stages. Monica Trinca-Colonel for Liv Alula-Jaco, I want to see how she does. They're coming to the race without Mavi Garcia, which they don't often do when it's a climbing heavy race. So I want to see how the team does without her.
I'm excited to see what because I think Liv Alula-Jaco are going to be ushering in the new generation of GC riders for their team. So I think giving Monica and Silke Smulders rope to be able to see how they handle a big Grand Tour like this without Mavi is a long-term planning option for them.
One of my new favorite riders, Sarah Van Dam, friend of the podcast. I want to see how she does. She's had some really great performances so far this year, with 5th at Tour of Britain and 3rd overall at Azulia. And yeah, I think for any other little tidbits, you can look at my preview on Escape Collective. And that's it for us, I think.
I think we'll see all these lovely people on Sunday for what looks to be like a very moist time trial.
All right. See you then.
This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Will Jones at Red Bricks Media.